everybody. Hey, it's Dr. Rick again. Look, before I get started, you know the routine. If you like what you see in here on this channel, click the like button, click the share button, and subscribe. If you are a person who has followed the work we do in the inner city community over the past 30 years, it's well documented. Many of you have actually sent people to me or come to me yourself, from everything from advocacy in the schools, the criminal justice system, mental health issues, financial issues, family issues, and on and on. We need your support. Look in the description box and see how you can support the work we do by donating. I appreciate you in advance. You know, I was sitting up and I was contemplating, basically what I shared on yesterday as it pertains to Jay-Z's statement about the album of the year. And as always, anytime I follow up on requests for commentary on celebrity news, I won't call it gossip, I'll call it news. It has to be a deeper layer. It has to be a learning and teaching experience. It has to be something that peels back the layers of this enigmatic and puzzling dynamic called the African American experience. And when I look at it, I see the microcosm of something that myself and those before me have been screaming at the top of our lungs, from Dr. Claude Anderson to Dr. Amos Wilson to Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Dr. Naim Akbar, Dr. Joy DeGray, and the person who is literally the reason I went into behavioral science and psychology, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, just to name a few. Like him or love him, Dr. Umar Johnson. It's been clear for some times that our issue in Black America isn't inherent impotence. It's impotence due to a lack of proactive engagement. It's an almost unwillingness to engage empirical and pragmatic data that points us in the direction of this liberation that we claim to desire at a feverish and intensive pace, but literally do very little to achieve or obtain. It's this thing that if I look back as far as I can into my journey of discovery, and I look at the evolution of how I think as a man, and when I think as a man, it's always as a Black man. I never divorce myself from my Blackness, no matter how successful I've been, no matter what room I walked into, no matter the occupants of the room. I've always identified as a Black man, and I always will. And with that, when I am observing my evolution and I'm looking at it, I'm looking and I'm seeing, am I outpacing the other men of my age? Because it's the men who have to have the vigor and the commitment and the willingness to stand out front and put themselves between everything harmful in our communities. And if there aren't enough of us doing that, we will fail. And one of the reasons that I created Black Men Lead, which is a rite of passage initiative, initially specifically rite of passage, ages 4 to 13, boys finish celebration, ushering into young manhood. And then I realized there was so much going on with our young adults, and I started to look at African American adolescent and young adult violence, which led me to that. in a different light. And I started to see that it wasn't simply an issue of violence. It was an issue of displacement and an issue of a lack of, a true identity or an awareness of self. Again, a need to be properly socialized into manhood, and specifically black manhood. So then it's not simply a socialization of young black males, it is a racial socialization with a complete and astute awareness of what it means to be a black man in this country and what is so necessary from our black men, that in totality and wholeness we are not giving, we are not delivering, we are not executing, and what it means in the way of our inability to properly educate our children, to be able to properly cover our women, to be properly in a capacity to lead all in our community, and what that looks like to the rest of America and what it means for the future of our progeny. And when I look at this, it is alarming because there are so many of us lost. We are too busy chasing pebbles when diamonds are within our grasp. And I'm concerned that we are losing ourselves more and more in the cloud of illusion, and some of us in the cloud of despair. Some of us are in this illusion that we've arrived, we've made it, we're balling out of control, and let us make close to or over six figures, and you can't tell us anything, when the truth of the matter is it hasn't done anything to help us in a total sense. Because here's the thing, number one, six figures don't go as far as it used to. Inflation is killing the dollar, but that's not even the biggest. The biggest issue is it hasn't put a dent in the wealth gap. The wealth gap is actually widening. See, that's how they get us. They give you the illusion. They put those who are in a place of seemingly being successful, they put that in front of you, and you live vicariously through them. That's why we're so attached to celebrities. That's why we are so frustrated and upset when something is said or something is done or something happens to one of them. It's as if it's happening to us because we are living vicariously through them, and we are suffering vicariously through them, and it has created this constant frustration with us. The problem is we are not coming together in a collective way. We are not working as one. We are not moving and operating as a unit. We have no community. There's no kind of unity. And when Hoover was asked, Hoover was asked, what is the greatest threat to national security? It wasn't the Soviet Union before its collapse, when the Cold War was at its height. You would think it would have been that. It wasn't a communist China who was an economic and threat. It wasn't Cuba, who had recently had missiles pointed at us. It wasn't the Middle East, which almost every country hated us. It was black unity. Now ask yourself, why is at that time the FBI's most funded and intensively active program at the time aimed at the black community? COINTELPRO infiltrated the Black Panther Party. COINTELPRO infiltrated the Black Nationalist Party. COINTELPRO identified black family units that were directly responsible for funding those programs. And see, that's the thing that they'll tell you about Jackie Wilson. They'll tell you about Sam Cooke. They'll tell you, and a lot of people don't know this, but Jimi Hendrix didn't die from a drug overdose. If you follow the course of the investigation, which investigative reporters are still looking into, it is obvious that he did not die by an overdose. He was killed. He was killed because Jimmy was taking the money he was making in the music industry, and he was funding the Black Panther Party. This is something we know for certain. So then we see those people But those weren't the ones that were the primary factors. It was the everyday family that was mobile, coming from men who worked in inner cities and industrial places that were literally operating with the complete funding of their jobs. So you had people working in the Middle East in plants like the Big Three and everywhere else. So again, there is this misunderstanding about where the funding came from. All of these things, we don't fund jack now. The programs that are in our communities that can literally work for us and help us and do this for us, these clowns are acting the clown up here, so I'm gonna have to get out because they're not gonna go. But anyway, they are not doing what we're not doing what was once done. We're not 100% invested in the future of our communities in a way that it shows up in how we spend our money. It shows up in how we spend time in our community. It shows up in the way that we move and operate in our activities. And it is going to show up in the world that we pass down to our offspring, our progeny, our great-great-grandchildren and their grandchildren. And we are going to need to do something about that. That's what I've got to share. We are behind so far that it's going to take something immensely radical to change the trajectory of blacks in this country. And yet it still can be done. The question is, how committed are we? On that note, I'm gonna get ready to get off of here. I apologize for the interruption. These guys are absolutely nuts, and every last one I'm over 50. And I'm probably the worst one, so I'm gonna get in here and actually get with them. But hey, look, if you believe in what we're trying to do, if you believe in the work we've done to this point, look in the description box and give. Share this with someone. Have conversations about this with someone. If you want to reach out and have deeper conversations with me and the people that I work with and the work we do, if you want to look and see just a bit of what we do, go check out the symposium I did for the inner city in Houston, in one of the most dangerous, impoverished areas in Houston, a couple of Saturdays ago. Go check it out. It was on the 27th of July, so it probably went up somewhere around the 28th, but go check it out. It's on this channel, and you can just get an idea of what we're doing. We are working, trying to bridge the gap in trust with law enforcement so that our people aren't being harassed but being protected, and that's a culture in and of itself. The people who I'm working with within Harris County Sheriff's Office understand it's a culture. They're admitting it's a culture, and they're literally putting themselves right in the spectrum of trying to do it. And I know for a fact, with what I'm seeing them do personally, that there are people within that care, but that culture is deeply rooted and it's there to protect itself. But the only way you're going to do it is have people on the outside who are going to hold the people who say they care on the inside accountable, so that they don't become consumed by the culture. Because that's what normally happens. People go and say, well, I'm gonna be different, and then eventually you just get in there and you get caught up in that culture. There's got to be something tugging at you to keep you focused on why you're there. That person is me. And I do it with love, I do it with care, I do it with accountability, and I want people to do the same thing for me. Keep me and hold me accountable for what I've promised to do in this community. If I ever start to retreat and sink back, remind me of what I've said and what I've committed to. And that has to be across the board. We as men need to do it. We as a people need to do it. So on that note, look, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable remainder of your day.